Hello, my name is Michael Cropsey. I'm going to do a series of videos doing AI small models locally on your systems. To start out though, the first demo I'm going to do is just how to get your lab set up to run Python and the PyTorch framework that you will use to run some of these pre-trained models you can do off the internet. Or develop models and train your own. But you need the PyTorch system run up. And you also, if you're running a system with a Nvidia GPU, we're going to install some libraries to take advantage of those so that you can utilize that GPU. Now, with all the buzz around AI, one of the reasons I like being able to work with AI models on my own system is, learning the fundamentals of how AI works behind the scenes is critical in today's IT world. In this environment, I'm using WSL, the Windows Subsystem for Linux, because VMware and Hyper-V do not provide direct access to the GPU. WSL allows me to virtualize my AlmaLInux while still taking advantage of the GPU acceleration on my Windows system. I'm also using AlmaLInux 9 because it mirrors RHEL 9 and offers a stable environment similar to what you might encounter in a production system. And learning AI concepts with small models, just a note, it's kind of like learning to drive in a parking lot before hitting the highway. Starting small teaches you the core skills, how data flows, how models process inputs and outputs, how to debug, optimize, possibly train. Once you understand that, scaling up to larger models and infrastructure, it's just more of the same, right? So that's the purpose of getting a lab set up and just kind of playing around with your own models. Now, if you're running a newer GPU like the Nvidia 5090, just word of warning, I have a 5090 systems. I had all sorts of problems getting the CUDA libraries to work. They're not supported yet. In order to do it, you have to go through a lot of tricks and compiling your own code, which takes forever, by the way. So I'm doing this demo on the 4070 Ti because it's fairly straightforward to get that up and running. Now, keep in mind, you're probably wondering, well, how come it doesn't support the 5090? Well, it's a high-end consumer GPU. In reality, in real enterprise environments, you're going to see, like an Nvidia A100, H100, L40, L4. GPUs designed for server workloads and AI performance, not gaming type systems. But obviously, the 5090 is pretty powerful, and I'm looking forward to seeing when they're going to release the CUDA libraries for those. Now, the other thing too is you really don't need a cutting edge GPU to get started. In fact, I run some of these Hugging Face models just fine on my MacBook Pro using only the CPU. For learning purposes, that's more than enough. Now, don't mention that to my wife because I may have used the term AI work as a partial justification for getting the 5090 for my new machine. So now, one of the other things to keep in mind with AlmaLInux 9, which mimics RHEL 9, is it's tightly coupled to Python 9 for stability. This is due to Red Hat's 10-year support cycle, so they're not quick to upgrade and key components like Python. So replacing it could actually break some system tools. So instead, we're going to use Python 3.11 because that works with the CUDA libraries and PyTorch. Do not go higher than that because I know for a fact that 3.13 has issues with some of the PyTorch libraries, which is the framework for running AI. Now, just to give you a rundown of what we're going to do, we're going to install AlmaLInux via WSL. We're going to update the system and add the Nvidia CUDA repository, then install that. We're going to verify it works from the system, from the CLI. Then once we do that, we're going to install some additional libraries we need, update the path for those libraries, and then we're going to install Python 3.11 with pip. Again, Do not replace 3.9 or remove it. We're going to run this side by side and call 3.11 explicitly when we run our AI tests. We're going to then create a virtual environment so that PyTorch is not installed globally. It's going to be installed in a virtual environment. And then we're going to test and make sure that we can run a Python program utilizing PyTorch that also accesses the 4070 Ti. So let's get started. Get to my Windows desktop. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into an admin terminal on Windows. If I do a WSL online, you can see these are the different Linux implementations you can download right from the store without having to download a ISO image. Again, we're going to choose AlmaLInux 9. By default, when you first install the WSL, it will put Ubuntu on, and then we want you to reboot. Now, you can just add AlmaLInux-9 along with it. You can run multiple. It's just like, if you were running it on VMware. But keep in mind the reason we didn't, again, we're not using VMware or Hyper-V because you don't have access to the GPU. But you can run these multiple Linux environments in WSL just like if you were running VMware or Hyper-V. So I'm going to go ahead and install AlmaLInux. And while that's installing and downloading, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, now it's prompting me for my username I want to use. I'm going to enter that. My password. Retype it. And now we are in the system. So, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do an update. Make sure my system's up to date. And I will pause again while that works. All right, well now that didn't take long because there wasn't anything to do. It looks like the system we downloaded was pretty up to date. So the next thing, and I do have these commands, I will have these commands all listed with steps in the description of my YouTube video, but we're going to download the latest repository for the CUDA for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9. And we're going to use that once it's downloaded to install the CUDA libraries. So here we're now doing a sudo DNF install of the CUDA Toolkit version 12.9. And I will go ahead and pause the video again while that installs. Now, as this is installing, you may run into an issue where one of the mirrors times out. Some of the mirrors appear to have bad internet connectivity. If that happens, just restart it. I've never had to restart it more than once, so don't worry about that. If it fails, if it times out in one of the mirrors, just restart it. Okay, now that we have the libraries or the toolkit installed, let's see if the system sees the GPU. And it does. You can see it came up, it sees the 4070 Ti. So now we are good to go. The next thing we want to do is we want to install some additional GPU libraries. So we are going to do that. And again, all these commands are going to be in a step 1 through 8 format on the YouTube page, so you'll be able to just copy and paste this information just like I am doing here. So we'll go ahead and install these libraries, and I will pause again while that continues to install. Okay, now that those libraries are installed, those extra GPU libraries, we have to set the path. We'll do that in our bash RC file. In order to do that, we need to be in my home directory, so I am going to go there, verify, so that's it. There's the bash RC file. Rather than editing the file, I am going to use the sed command to go ahead and automatically export this. You could use VI or Nano or any editor you want and edit the file, but I'm just going to append it to that bash RC file and then source it so that it takes into effect right away. So now that we've done that, the next step will be to install Python. Now remember, we're not replacing 3.9, which is on there, because if we look, the Python command by default calls version 3.9. We're not going to replace that. We're not going to make 3.11 the default. We're just going to install it, and then when we need it, we will call it explicitly by Python 3.11. So let's go ahead and install that. Again, replacing 3.9 would more than likely break a lot of things on RHEL 9 or AlmaLInux 9. Make sure I didn't do any typos here. And password. And I will let that install. Do I have to pause this? No, that's going to go pretty quick. Okay, so now we have Python 3.11. And again, we will always call it explicitly by its version. When we do AI, we're going to always do 3.11 because 3.9, if you try doing 3.9, you'll get errors. So you'll know right away that you didn't execute 3.11 because it won't work. Your PyTorch programs will not work. So now let's make sure I'm in my home directory. Now I'm going to make a subdirectory. And I'm going to call it AI Lab. I'm going to go into it. Now this is where I'm going to create my virtual Python environment so that these libraries are only in effect when I'm in this virtual environment. That keeps things clean. It also prevents some security issues if you install these libraries globally. If you're familiar with Python, you know all about virtual environments. Okay. What did I type wrong? Oh, I didn't do the make command, so it was trying to execute a file called venv. Okay, so Python 3.1-m. This is going to make the virtual environment. All right, so now we're going to activate that virtual environment. Now when you want to deactivate and get out of that, you type in the deactivate command, but that's not what we want to do now. So we'll go back in. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, and I'm going to copy and paste the command because there's a URL I'm going to need to have in here. But we're going to install Torch and Torch Vision, Torch Audio. These are frameworks so that we can work with AI in our Python code. Going to obtain these from this URL. So this takes a little longer, so I am going to pause the video again while this completes. Just one note, while this is installing, you see those warnings. Those you can safely ignore. I did research on them. I forget what those are trying to tell you, but just disregard. Nothing's going to break. Everything will work fine. Yeah, just one more note. I looked up that warning again. I mean, you can get rid of it, but get rid of the warning. But basically, the metadata is capitalizing Jinja 2 instead of lowercase, and it doesn't like that, so it's just warning you, even though they refer to the same thing and everything's working fine. So again, just ignore these warnings. All right, now also checking the latest version of pip. That's a warning you can ignore as well. That's got something to do with having pip 3.1 and having mixed versions of Python. Pip is just fine, so you can safely ignore that. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to see if in fact everything works. And we're going to do that by launching Python 3.11. Make sure you call it out, because if you put these commands, if you just launch Python, it's going to launch 3.9. These commands aren't going to work. So the first thing we want to do is we want to import Torch. The next thing we want to do is we want to check to make sure the CUDA libraries are working through Python. Seeing the video card. That works. Looks like we're seeing it. Now let's do one more check to see, to verify one more time that it is in fact seeing the actual 4070 Ti GPU, and it is. So at this point, we have created our lab environment. We have PyTorch installed, and that was the purpose of this demo. Other videos will show actually installing models and working, just doing a little bit of work with some of the models, basic stuff, and maybe some training. But for now, this completes me showing you how to set up the lab. I will deactivate right now my Python virtual environment, and thanks for watching the video. Thank you.